Get the boat gassed up, saunter down to the dock. Put the Yeti in the back and she's ready to rock. It's a May River. It's a May River thing. It's a May River thing. Got the whole family down here. It's a May River thing.
Hey, it's Tim Wood on Low Country Chronicle. We are continuing to talk about the life of Andrew Farbman, the owner of Amigos. It seems kind of reductive to just kind of reduce him to that because he was so much more to the community, as we'll hear from another one of his 80,000 friends, Lynne Hummell, the editor from the Bluffton Sun. My friend, sorry to do our first video on such a topic, but so many people were struck by your words on Monday, and so I just wanted to bring you on to talk a little bit about Andrew and share some stories.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope I can get through this without melting into a blubbering puddle of tears.
Do you know Barry Ginn?
I know him to know who he is. I don't know him.
Yeah, I had Barry and Heather Nix on earlier, and we got through most of it without crying. So
Good.
I'm not here to be Barbara Walters with you. So
Okay.
the whole point of this, honestly, and this is what I said in the other videos, to just share stories about him. I'm not a fan of funerals and goodbyes. Then you get older, those happen more and more, and I'm more of a fan of celebrations and Irish wakes. So that's what we're trying to do. A lot of people tend to go inside their head on stuff like this, and focus on the sadness, and not that we want to stop anyone from grieving or being sad. We don't want to do that at all. But he just touched so many folks, and it's so cliche to say he's truly one of the special ones. But he was.
Absolutely.
Where did you first run into him?
I first ran into him at Amigos on Hilton Head, the very first store. I worked at the Island Packet at the time, mid-90s, I think it was when he opened. He had a partner, and we who used to go there often kind of categorized them as the happy one and the grumpy one. And of course, Andrew was the happy one. So a group of us would go to lunch from time to time. It was very close by, and we were always looking for a quick lunch spot close to the office. And that became one of our favorite spots there. And there were a group of us who would go regularly, I guess about 6 or 8 of us. And there were 4 guys in the group who came up with this hot sauce eating contest at some point at lunchtime, which I thought was weird, but
Guys
whatever.
Being guys, though, yeah.
Exactly. And so they would order whatever they were having with hot sauce on the side and make it hot. And Andrew would bring out hot sauces, and the guys would just try different ones, and it was a contest to see who could eat the hottest one. And Andrew would bring out more and more hot sauce until they couldn't stand it anymore. And they were in tears from the heat, and the girls, we were just laughing at them, and I just thought it was hysterical. And why would you do that? But
why are
like
we
I said,
stupid like that? I'm not immune from doing idiot stuff like that. I certainly not. So, but I just have never seen a group of women or girls get together and do stupid stuff like that.
Well, not a hot sauce
Yeah,
anyway.
hot sauce. Yeah, I don't know what it
Well,
is with
that
hot
was funny.
sauce.
Yeah, we did think it was funny, and I think several of them would probably still maybe regret doing that as often as they did, but guys will be guys, I guess. But anyway, so that was where how I met Andrew, and a few years later, the Packet building moved over to Bluffton, where it is now the building that's still there, and he moved or opened a second Amigos in Bluffton around the same time. We were all excited. Oh, yay! Thank you. And we just figured that he moved to Bluffton because we did, because we were at the
You just had to follow you.
Hilton Head spots, and he came to the Bluffton one. Grumpy stayed on Hilton Head, so we continued our lunches over there. And it wasn't just the lunch. I mean, his food was great. His food was always great, and it was him. It was Andrew.
Yeah.
He was the consummate host and would take time with his customers, not just the regulars. He would talk to the newcomers. He talked to everybody. He was friendly with everybody. And there was this one thing that he did, and I think I put this in my post on Facebook the other day. I'd walk in the door, and we had become friends over these years. So I'd walk in the door and just kind of say, "Hey," and he would stare at me with that weird little grin of his. Like the first couple of times, I was taken aback. Like, did he not hear me? Is it too loud? Did I
Have
mumble?
something on my
Whatever.
face. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Do I have spinach in my teeth already? Um, and then he would just veggie burrito. Well, yeah. And then we both laugh, and he'd get my lemonade and whatever, and catch up with whatever the news was. And we had a few friends in common. I knew Gina, his wife, and how's Gina? How's Lexi? And he would talk about them, especially Lexi. Love that girl, and just catch up. All the while he's serving other customers, and a couple of times we got involved in a conversation about a particular friend who got sick, and I was concerned that customers were coming in and he was ignoring them, and it was, this is important. So he and I talked about that, and the customers waited. I mean, I think everybody was kind of used to that. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, this might take a minute,
It's the
but it was
common
okay.
refrain. Everybody I've talked to has shared that similar. Like, if there was something of importance, like moments mattered to him, and
Absolutely,
like he was all in on you in the moment.
exactly.
Um, did you ever sense he was a New Yorker? Like,
No,
yeah, I mean the
I mean,
stereotypical New
no,
Yorker, like,
definitely not the stereotypical. No.
yeah. What do you think? Do you think it was just the see? Because I've seen and I don't want to stereotype everybody, but I mean, like typically New Yorkers when they come here, it takes them an adjustment period to slow down. And my classic example is always honestly the owner of the Sand Gnats when we were trying to move the team to Bluffton. I mean, he just did not have a slow country pace, and I was often the translator in that. But he was just classic New Yorker, and Andrew never. I mean, Andrew was a diehard uh, New York team fan, New York Giants, but he never came off as forget about it. He always he seemed to just love this area. Like he realized pretty quickly that he found paradise.
Well, he belonged here. I think that's what he found when he got here. He belonged. and fit seamlessly in. Of course, Hilton Head Bluffton, back in those days, there were so many people from elsewhere. Well, there still are, of course. So many people from elsewhere that you connect on so many different levels, um, and he just fit right in.
Um, you also mentioned that he was like at every event.
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, as a newspaper person, I go to a lot of events, and I'm the big events and the small events. Um, Heritage, of course, and the Concours, Hilton Head Concours, Wine Fest, Seafood Fest, whatever fest. And Andrew was always there, always. And that was usually where I would run into him. If I wasn't, ordering my veggie burrito at the restaurant, I'd run into him on the weekends at whatever fest. And we'd always stop and talk. And I remember one, I remember one time at Concours, I don't remember what section it was that we caught up, but he was smoking that damn cigar. I hate cigars. And walking around looking at all these fancy cars, and here are both of us, and we're probably both wearing jeans, and we weren't fancy. And my husband was going one way, and Andrew was this way, and he just kind of stuck with me, and we were just like wandering along, talking to people, and kind of glancing at the cars, and having our own conversation. So, yeah, it was fun. It was always fun to see him.
Um, what do you think it was, just in terms of? I mean, did you ever have the conversations with him of like, why are you like this? Like, what you know? Like, why are you so happy?
Um, no, not really.
I mean, it's a
Um,
lot of stress being a business owner, and I mean,
yeah,
he had a lot of stresses in his life. I mean, we all do, but I mean,
sure.
small business owner especially, that can
Well,
be a grind.
it can be, but I think he enjoyed that too. That was his life away from home, and his customers were there. His customers became his friends, so it was enjoyable to him, and he didn't mind letting a couple of other people kind of take over and run it for a day, so he could go and do some family things or go on a fishing trip or whatever else
Golf
it was he
tournament,
did.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
Grateful Dead
and
concert.
yeah. Oh yeah, that. So yeah, he trusted his people. He hired good people and he let them do their jobs, which is always the mark of a good businessman. And but when he was there, it was part of his fun routine. And not that it was fun, but he didn't have any serious worries about it. Or if he did, the customers never saw it. I didn't see it. But yeah, I think it was partly because he was just connecting with the people. He was in his
Absolutely.
element.
As you've shared stuff over the last couple of days, I mean, have you heard news stories about him, or things about him that just were like, made you smile, or things you hadn't heard about?
Yeah, a couple. I can't remember any right off the top of my head, um, except for the motorcycle. Did you see that
The
picture
Greg, yeah,
of
the Greg Allman
Greg
motorcycle
Allman
photo.
motorcycle? I'd never seen or heard about that before. Um, a lot of funny stories that I had not heard. Um, just various people sharing, and every now and then I would find myself saying, "Oh yeah, he did that,"
Uh
or
huh.
"Oh, I can see that. I can see him doing that. I can hear him saying that." And like the grin, like it was almost like a smirky grin,
Yeah,
but it was just him,
he was
and it
just.
was cool.
Yeah, I mean, he was just. I don't even want to say politically incorrect. He just didn't care. He just liked talking to people. He didn't care if you
Right?
were, didn't care if you were Christian, or it didn't care about any labels. You know,
No,
he
no,
just he just wanted to feed you, and wanted to hear your
yeah,
story. Like,
exactly. The only label was your name.
yeah,
You know, it's and then that's all you need, and get to know that person, and And I think he would always find something to connect with. There
Yeah.
was just even simple stuff, like hot sauce. I don't know. Um, he was just very personable. That was just his nature.
The first time I went in there I said this to a few other people. It's like the third person I met in Bluffton. Um,
Mm,
it was like the day that we came over the first time. I kind of
wow,
came over in advance of meeting with the county, to just scout out the area. And I saw Kroger and I saw Blockbuster Video, and I love movies, so I was like, all right, cool. And then I saw Amigos around the corner, and I go in. Um, I'm there for 4 hours. you know,
not surprised.
I brought up going to Fordham and the Bronx and the Yankees, and 4 hours later, I mean, he's telling me all about low country and what brought him here and what makes, why I'm never gonna leave. And um
Right.
he's like, about an hour in, he was like, I already tell, like, this place is made for you. It wasn't
That's
wrong.
cool.
It wasn't
That's
wrong.
cool. Yeah. It's very intuitive, huh?
Oh yeah, I mean, and so one of the things I just wanted to bring up with you is we have a shared friend who passed, Vicky Needham, and Vicky had a really good connection with Andrew.
Yeah, she did. Vicki was one of those trusted employees. She was a journalist by day and often by night, as we know we can be. But she had Amigos was her part-time job, and she and Andrew clicked. They worked well together, and she was one of the ones that he could take off and go off for the weekend, and she'd fill in. And so our little circle kind of grew. Um, and then Vicky moved away, and she and I had been friends from the packet. She was, she was one of that group that watched the guys with the hot sauce contest. And she and I would just sit back and what anyway. So she would handle things for Andrew when he needed to go out of town or take a day off or whatever. Um, and so then I got to the point where, oh, I'll go in tonight because Vicky's working, and we became really good friends. And she moved to Washington D.C. She was a writer for The Hill for a time. She was on C-SPAN.
She went up and lived her dream up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she just loved covering that world up there. And and once she got up there and got the first couple of big stories out, I knew she wasn't coming back here, not
No.
to work, but she did come back to visit.
Hmm.
And I started to say I went up there for the first inauguration for President Obama, and she insisted that I stay with her. I was like, okay, well, that sounds like fun. Well, she was our tour guide. My older son, went with us and went with me. And she took us around and showed us everything, and went with us to a couple of things, and things that I never would have done had it not been for Vic. And we just had a great time. She picked us up at the train station, dropped us off. Um, it was just amazing. And so after that, we were just like very connected. And she came back to visit a few times. She had a friend who had a house in Windmill Harbor that she would let Vicky use the house when she was here. And she would have these dinners and invite just a few of us. Like, I think there were probably about 8 or 10 of us. Her brother, Christian, moved down here at some point, and I couldn't tell you the timeline for all of this, but after Vicky moved away, I think Christian had moved here in the meantime. Well, he kind of got her job at Amigos, so he was working with Andrew, and they got to be very good buddies. And anyway, so Vicky would have these dinners, and we'd all bring a little something. But Andrew was one of the attendees at a few of those dinners, and so it was kind of interesting to see him away from the events, out of the big public eye, away from the restaurant, and just hanging out with friends. And those nights were just really cool.
What was he
Um,
like in those moments? Was I mean,
he was
people say it wasn't a show at the restaurant. Like this was just who he was.
well. That's what I was about to say. He was the same. He was chatty. He was interested in what you were saying. He had stories. He would share his stories, and we would share our stories. And can you believe this happened? And did you see on the what? Just how friends chat when
Sure.
they're having maybe a couple of cocktails and a plate of food. And it was one of those. We all sat around this ginormous table and chatted with one another. And it was one of those, that was one group that, how sometimes when you're in a group of 8 or 10 people and you have a conversation on this end and you have a conversation on that end of the table, this group more often than not would have an ongoing conversation with everybody involved. There were not separate
It's like an
conversations on one end
unofficial
and the other.
moderator, huh?
Well, kind of, it was just, I don't know. It was just, I guess we got comfortable with each other
Yeah.
and just enjoyed the time and enjoyed the moments and enjoyed those people.
It's amazing what you realize when you listen, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
we all have our stories to tell, but then you get together
Yeah.
with your friends and I mean that's what always amazed me with him is just I mean he was a great listener. I mean he had great stories, but he was a great listener too, and very just caring. I mean,
Very, very caring. And when Vicky got sick, she had cancer and she continued to come down and visit. She continued to work. I will always say that was one of the most educated patients I have ever seen or heard about. When her doctors would tell her, here's the issue, we're going to do this. And she would say, well, let's just hold the horses. Let me go research that. And she did. And she was her own self care was amazing. Um, Researching the medicines, researching the protocols, researching the doctors, and finding the best doctor to do this thing that needed to be done. And anyway, so that was quite a journey. And Andrew and I kind of shared that because he and I were here. She was still in Washington. And so I think probably got a little bit closer as that was happening because she was very open about her treatments and what was going on. And she had a Facebook page that a bunch of friends from around the country were members of. And she would post when she felt like it. And she would text us or call us. And, so he and I got to a point where it was like, well, have you heard from Vic lately? Well, I just saw what she posted on the page, or, yeah, I talked to her last night. She sounded good. And we just kind of stayed in touch because of that. And it was a sad but shared experience. But I think for me, having someone who knew her so well and knew her on the same level that I did, having him there to kind of bounce things off was comforting. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
It was I don't know. I just don't know I don't know if knowing it's coming and accepting it and appreciating the thing with Andrew though is he just appreciated everybody anyway. It's not
Right.
I don't feel like he left a lot on the table. I feel like using the sports analogy, like he left it all on the field. I
Yeah.
can't imagine a whole lot of regrets there. And I just in terms of the way he lived his life.
Yeah. Full on.
Um, what do you want to endure with him? I just I know it's um, it's still raw, and but what do you want people to know, um, and the spirit of him to endure?
I think his daughter said that best. I saw her post last night or this morning about her dad and just the very things that we've been talking about. He had a lot of friends. He loved everybody. He loved life. He was not a negative person. He was very positive. And what a world it would be if more people were like my dad. And that's from Lexi.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
It Going in there was almost, quite honestly, you just deal, our gigs especially, you deal with a lot of cynicism and negativity, and thankfully we've been able to carve out a world where we can report on a lot of the positive stuff. But I mean, you deal with a lot of jerks, and there's just a lot of jerks out there. Period. It was always like a reset. I felt like almost like a palate cleaner whenever I went in there. you know,
That's apropos. Yeah, sure. That's
because you
a
just,
food and beverage analogy.
yeah, I didn't even try.
Yeah.
I just, uh, I didn't want to. You don't want to leave. First of all, so it's like, after a while, okay, this is in a good way. Like, I'm not gonna get out of here in an hour, and
Uh-huh.
that's okay. That's awesome, and um, because it was just, I don't know. He had this love of life, like you said, and just had a very, just, when you have people that have that positive outlook and don't get, I mean, it's really easy to say don't sweat the small stuff, but I mean, he just, at least outwardly, didn't. He just was focused on
Yeah.
the moment, on people, on relationships. The stories that have come out, um, so many people have shared, whether it's on what's happening in Bluffton or Ask and Answer, or on their personal Facebook pages that I'm friends with. Um, the stories about meeting him, you know, 15 years ago, when bad stuff was happening within the family, and he was so empathetic, and then seeing coming in 15 years later, and I'm remembering the name and remembering the whole story, asking how every family every family member was. I just, without fail, it's everybody, and it's like, how do you fit that much in your head?
Yeah. It,
um,
it's a it's a gift. It was a gift that he had. He was warm and hospitable, and he cared.
how do you, I was talking about this earlier, in terms of amigos going on, like, the staff is gonna it's gonna be hard, but I like,
Sure.
it feels like it has to go on. First of all, I mean, it sounds stupid to say, but like, it 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 it's not just a business for a lot of people.
Right.
That's a really special place.
Yep. And for those employees, I would imagine it's home
Yeah,
because I believe that a number of them have been there for a long time.
yeah.
And maybe there's somebody who's connected and um, wants to carry that torch, that it might work out, that that could happen. Um, I hope so.
Yeah, I think, one way or the other, whether it's is staff taking it over, or just there's a trust of people that make sure it stays open.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it seems like that's going to be the center of keeping his spirit alive. I mean, so many different ways of keeping his spirit alive, but um, anything we haven't hit on, Lynn, that you want to get out there?
Um, well, I, no, not really. I just hope that maybe from this tragedy we can learn a few things and learn a little more patience, a little more kindness. Tell your friends and family you love them. Um, and let's live like Lexi's dad.
Yeah.
Let's live like Andrew.
Um, it it's the we're gonna have some tough days over the next few weeks with get-togethers, and it'll be good in a way. But I mean, yeah, once all that goes away and we keep everybody keeps boosting up the family. But I mean, I think that's just really above and beyond. It is just um,
Yeah,
don't waste what we had with him. Like
absolutely.
pay that forward.
Absolutely. And one other thing I want to share too, and I just said this to actually to Vicky's brother. I was just messaging with him, and Christian, I hope you don't mind me saying this. What I said to him was grief is different for everybody, for every person who has to go through it. But one thing that I've learned in all of my years is that love, when it's shared, it multiplies. Grief, when we share it, is divided. So, in sharing our grief, ours, yours, Gina, Lexi, the family, let's help them divide their grief. Let's take on some of that burden for them, with them. And as a community, we can grieve together. That's okay. And then it will be divided. It will be lessened for everybody.
And there's no timetable on when we
Absolutely
get
not.
over, and when the hope in this, the hope in just keeping people talking is for less of the bad tears, more of the good tears. More of the smile tears of all the things that just um made him
Yeah.
have. And I've just listen, we've collectively we've seen a lot of people pass, you know,
Yeah.
and that sucks. And yeah, I don't want to put any labels on this is the most I've ever seen, but it is. I'm sorry. It's I there's a lot of the stories are endless. Um, there's so many good people here um, that make this such a special place, and that's one of the other legacies. Quite honestly, is just for us to appreciate what we have and pass it on to everybody else. When I hear all these people talking about all these go back, that's the thing I hate the most. If I hate
Yeah.
anything, I don't really hate anything, but I mean, I despise this. Oh, go back to New York, go back to where you came from. It's like
Yeah.
we all came here for a reason, and it, you know, this is a special place, and the people here are special, and he truly appreciated that more so than
Yes.
anybody I've probably ever met, and knew an hour in of our conversation, I, I laughed at him when he said it, but 2 weeks later we were looking at a house here. you know, Um,
Yeah.
because he got it. Lynn, thank you so
Yeah.
much for jumping on and sharing some memories of Andrew and his circle and his life.
Thank you for asking me.
You got it.